Today is November 2nd, 2010. We are taping this interview in the studio of the Video Club of Laguna Woods, California. This is the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress of the United States, in partnership with the Historical Society of Laguna Woods. Our guest today is John Sells. He was born on June 5th, 1922, and he served in the United States Marine Corps. And I am Carly Lutzow. Good morning, John. So nice of you to come and share your memories with us. Will you tell me your full name?
It's John Nelson Sells.
And when were you born?
June 5th, 1922.
And where was that? Where were you born?
Oh, in the small town of Duvall, Oklahoma.
Did you live there during the years you grew up?
I moved at an early age. My father was transferred to different locations. His final location was in a town of Drumright, Oklahoma. That's where I attended school and most of the years of my rearing.
What high school did you go to?
It was Drumright High School. I started there was 4 years of high school. So I began as a freshman and graduated as a senior.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
I have had one brother. He's no longer living.
When you went to high school, did you say you completed your high school 4 years? When did you join the service?
I joined the service at the age of 17, and is when I finished high school. I went away to college 1 year at the age of 18 and to 19. And at the age of 19, I did not return to college for the second year, but at that time is when the United States went to war.
I see.
And that's when in January of 1942, is when I finally got permission from my mother to enlist in the Marine Corps.
And do you recall the date you left the service?
Yes, I enlisted on January 31st, 1942.
And when when were you discharged?
I was discharged 4 years to the date later, in January 31st, 1946.
And what was the highest rank you achieved?
I attained the rank of corporal.
Okay. Now you went to, when you did actually go, where did you go to boot camp?
I enlisted in the town of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was transferred by bus from there after enlistment, transferred by bus to Oklahoma City, where I underwent my physical examinations, and then placed on a train and sent to San Diego, boot camp in San Diego.
Okay, and where did you go after that?
Oh, after that, after boot camp, I was sent to Camp Elliott. That's at the north end of the city of San Diego.
And then you had an interesting thing happen after you finished Camp Elliott?
Yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, Camp Pendleton was under construction at that time. In September of 1942, enough of Camp Pendleton was constructed to accommodate a smaller group of the Marines. As a result, we marched from Camp Elliott up Old Highway 395 to occupy Camp Pendleton, to first occupy Camp Pendleton. Some of the utilities were not quite complete at the time, and at the me being at that time being in the telephone communications group, I was among the Marines who installed telephone lines on telephone poles between headquarters facilities and different barracks. Very interesting.
How long did it take you to get to Camp Pendleton from Camp Elliott?
It was a two-day march. And as a matter of fact, we camped overnight in the town of Vista, in the city park of the town of Vista. The citizens of Vista treated us royally. They couldn't do enough for us. They met us there. We were bivouacked to be overnight in tents, and they showered us with pastries and cookies of all types.
How wonderful.
Oh.
I understand you've written a book about your experiences.
Indeed, I certainly have.
Would you like to show it to us?
Indeed. This is the book I've written. It's called Echoes of Another Era. And it takes place from my very earliest childhood memories to the end of World War II.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk about some of those memories. After you were at Pendleton for a while, you went overseas?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it was in early February of 1943, we boarded what at one time had been a luxury liner serving the Pacific area, a wonderful ship called the USS Mount Vernon, a huge ship. There were at least 10,000 troops boarded that ship at a wharf in San Diego and set sail for New Zealand. In 14 days of transport, we arrived in Auckland, New Zealand.
And from there?
From there, we were trucked from the wharf or docks. We were trucked by what they call lorries, which to us, meaning trucks. We were trucked to a former camp used and occupied by the New Zealand troops. They who were at this time all engaged in combat over in North Africa or with the Australian troops fighting in the New Guinea area.
Well, did they send you someplace from there?
Yes, from there we were in New Zealand for a period of approximately 5 months. In July of 1944, we were then boarded ship again and transferred to Guadalcanal. We experienced a somewhat of a typhoon en route to Guadalcanal, and it was developed into what was to be a very uncomfortable ride aboard ship. But anyway, we did finally arrive at Guadalcanal.
Well, from Guadalcanal, where did they send you?
From Guadalcanal, we remained there and set up camp in a huge coconut grove. And we trained then, used Guadalcanal as a base for training, further training in amphibious landings, practice landings. However, we were being bombed almost nightly by the Japanese. Their primary target was the airfield on Guadalcanal. However, if they saw anything that apparently that they thought was of military significance, they didn't hesitate to bomb it as well. We were reasonably well camouflaged, however, in this coconut grove.
Did you go from there someplace else?
Yes, from there, from that point, we boarded the old USS Adams and sailed to the small group of islands called New Hebrides. At that point, we underwent more amphibious landings on a 2-week assault program, training program. At the end of that 2 weeks, we set sail again aboard the USS Adams and met other ships en route to our first combat landing, or combat assault, on the island of Bougainville, which was one of the largest islands of the Solomon Island group. We made on November 1st, 1943, is when we landed at Cape Torquino on the island of Bougainville.
Well, did you stay on Bougainville or did you go other places?
We stayed on Bougainville. The combat lasted almost until Thanksgiving, which was the end of November. And by that time, we had accomplished our mission, which was to secure enough of the island to construct and maintain a fighter landing strip for U.S. Army Air Force fighters, fighter base planes. And the first hot meal that we had at that period of time, we finally, on November of Thanksgiving, we had fresh turkey. It was fresh, newly thawed, frozen turkey. But what a delight! The first hot meal we'd had in months, and we were delighted to have it.
I'm sure.
From that point, then immediately following our Thanksgiving so-called banquet, is when I came down with an attack of malaria.
Yeah.
So I spent most of the month of December in sick bay, back down at the beach, and delirious most of the time for at least 2 weeks. And I remember commotion taking place down on the beach. and after inquiring, learned that the Marines were being pulled off of the island and being replaced by Army group. That's when I said goodbye to the corpsman at the sick bay, and struggled with the rifle on my back and my pack, and struggled to rejoin my outfit at the beach. We went to the beach via Higgins boats again, back to the troop transports. And wouldn't you believe, again, the USS Adams was the ship that I was assigned to. We sailed then back to Guadalcanal for a period of what is called R&R, with rest and relaxation. Anyway, we stayed there and for a rest period, and then began training again for our next operation.
And where was your next operation?
Our next operation then, we boarded the USS Adams once more and sailed from Guadalcanal up to the group or the cluster of atolls called the Marshall Islands, at the well-known base and island there is called Kwajalein. At Kwajalein, we transferred back down the landing nets into boats, and from there on to LSTs. The LST designated as landing ship tanks. They were already, the LSTs were already equipped with Amtraks, tanks, heavy artillery, and ready to take on troops. The troops had no accommodations aboard LSTs, so we slept on the deck or down in the hold. But under vehicles or in vehicles, wherever we find room to spread out. All we needed was a blanket, and we all had a blanket strapped to our back, to our packs.
Did you see any severe fighting?
From that point, we launched our next operation in a huge convoy and flotilla of other LSTs, accompanied by other transports, primarily for supplies, and escorted by naval destroyers. The only ships that were visible to us were the destroyers. And they were on both flanks of our formation.
Google. How do you spell thoroughly?
We didn't know our destination until we were underway and within 5 days of landing on the island of Guam. En route, 2 days prior to our scheduled landing on Guam, we were notified that our landing had been postponed, and we were assigned then. I was in the 3rd Division of the Marine Corps. It was announced that the 3rd Division would remain at sea as floating reserve for the 1st Division, who had landed on the islands of Saipan and Tinian. They were having, and along with an Army division of troops, they were having difficulty making advancements at that time. And we were then declared as reserve troops to go in as reinforcements for the 1st Division. Finally, we were told that the Marines had the island pretty well under control at Saipan. However, our operation must be replanned, rescheduled. Consequently, we were sent still aboard the LSDs. We were sent all the way back to Enewetak area in what was part of the Gilbert Islands atolls. We remained there, living aboard the LSDs, but being transported by Higgins boats daily to the small atolls for physical activities, sports primarily, but other physical activities, meaning to gain exercise. After spending two weeks under that activity, our plan was rescheduled, replanned, and we took on more provisions and set sail again to what was finally our planned assault on the island of Guam. So in the mid area of the month of July 1944, we landed on Guam and underwent the assault against the Japanese at that time.
And you managed to survive that.
Fortunately, I did.
When you did land on these islands, were you, did you have a job to do?
Yes, I did. Every man had an assignment. We were all assigned to a particular duty. My duty was to land with the company commander of one of the rifle companies with a telephone with one helper and with 2 reels of combat wire. Now this was on the island of Guam. My helper and I each had a reel of combat wire and a field telephone. We also had a stick about 6 feet long with a colored flag nailed or tied to the top of it. Once we landed, our duty was to secure that stick into the sand of the beach, tie the end of a reel of wire, tie the end of the wire to it in a particular type of slip knot, and then pay the wire out and follow the company commander with giving him what ultimately would be telephone communications between him and the battalion commander, who would be landing in 2 or 3 waves later. So that was my duty. My helper and I on Guam, we were at the landing craft on that island, and that assault was by landing vehicles called alligators. They were an amphibious vehicle versus the landing boats. They were an amphibious vehicle that once we hit the beach, the Navy drivers would shift gears and then put the vehicle in mode to traverse the sand and the terrain of the beach. We landed. Once we landed on the beach of Guam, the company commander thought that that was it, and he ordered everybody out over the sides and onto the beach, but not knowing that the Navy driver of the vehicle was just changing gears in order to proceed further onto the beach, which he did, and as he proceeded another yard, he hit a landmine. That landmine disabled the vehicle, tossing several of us to one side. At the time, the company commander ordered everyone out. He was the first one over to the side, right at the point of impact of that landmine. Needless to say, that he was dead by the time he hit the ground. His staff sergeant managed to take over and take command of the group within the vehicle, and he took the company commander's field glasses and his pouch containing maps and other information, and he began to take charge of all of the personnel in the vehicle, and we then marched or ran in advance toward the ridge facing us, jumping into one bomb crater after the other as protection, and jumping behind old coconut trees which had been felled by bombs. Anyway, by the end of that first day, we had made progress up to the top of that first ridge and dug in for the night. Anyway, that was the most fierce landing that we had encountered up to that point.
Oh my goodness, that certainly was. Did you have more landings anywhere near like that, or?
We had one minor landing that took place the following day. I was called back down to battalion headquarters by the battalion commander to provide telephone service on another assault over to a very small island, which was basically you might say a suburban island of the island of Guam. That the island was connected by a man-made link. However, the intelligence felt that by all means was very heavily bombed with, or laced, laced with a different type of weaponry, mostly landmines. So we went to the backside of this small island, again in amphibious vehicles. And there is when I met the first
and then they opened the door and the beast is there.
I shouldn't say first, but a very sad experience. The fellow in front of me carrying a machine gun tripod on his shoulders, on his back, is when he stepped over a coral ledge and hit another landmine. It was more of a anti-personnel mine, but it stripped his left leg of all flesh, and it was a really a bad sight. So I immediately took my telephone off of my shoulder and connected it to get the communications back to our battalion headquarters. So the first lieutenant in charge of this patrol, he and the battalion lieutenant colonel, the battalion commander, were in communications and sent another Amtrak out immediately to pick him up and get him aboard the hospital ship, which is anchored offshore. But anyway, as it turned out, there were no enemy personnel on that small island whatsoever. So it was basically futile. There was nothing there. But at least intelligence was aware or advised them of the fact that there was no enemy on that particular island.
On some of these islands, did you string telephone wires?
I did. That was my primary duty, was to establish telephone communication. Whether we had, and there were times when we had to bury the line in sand, or going through dense jungle.
How do
We'd
you
have to
spell
camouflage it on the ground.
vacuum?
We no way we could
How do you spell
string the
vacuum?
wire and conceal it otherwise. Once we established camp, however, we would string the wires from tree to tree, and we had to be up high enough that all large covered trucks and also trucks carrying tanks could clear the lowest sag line of the telephone line. So we were equipped, however, to do that. We had, in camp, we would rely on, we had learned to climb telephone poles, and which was became quite easy for us. And just like you would see a telephone lineman, perhaps in your daily routine walks in daily life in this country. They were, although we used what was called the climbing spurs, they were the steel climbers that strapped onto between our feet and the lower part of our leg, and with this hook, the spike, on the inside of each one, So we would climb poles and dig the spike in each step on the way up the pole. And then similarly in the reverse on the way back down.
Or in the trees?
And then in the trees. Absolutely.
Well, that was quite a landing, all both of them. Did you do any? Did you stay on Guam then, or did you stay on Guam?
The Guam operation was considered secured, and sometime in, I believe, September of '44. And from that point on, it was a matter of just maintaining surveillance for any stray Japanese soldiers or any, primarily that was our concern. There were still a number of the Japanese still hidden out in caves and mostly in caves on different spots on the island. There were many caves on the island. And we were cautioned not to go out souvenir hunting and definitely not to go into any of the caves. So we stayed there and until sometime in October of '44, and we began training again. We were going out on 2- and 3-day training operations and up into the back to the upper elevations on the island, up to the most barren part of the island. Having no idea what we were training for, it was the most barren part of the island, we knew, and we began training to string telephone lines on overhead in a manner which conflicted with everything that we were taught. But we were taught to string them overhead to where they would become visible. Not knowing what the tactics involved at this time, we were on our way back out to camp, or on another 2- or 3-day operation. One day, marching down the company road, leaving our camp, and I heard to my right the command, "Cells, fall out." I turned and looked, and it was our battalion adjutant. I couldn't imagine what it was all about. He commanded me again to fall out. He said, "Cells, you're on 24-hour notice to return to the States." Everybody cast their eye in my direction as I fell out of rank over to the side of the column. And then whenever the group had passed, I inquired with him as to what it was all about. He said, "Cells," he says, "you have been selected to return to the States to attend a V12 program. I said, sir, what the hell is V12? I had no idea what V12 meant. He explained it to me that it was an academic program. The fact that I already had 1 year of college and requiring a minimum of 2 years as foundation for commission, foundation, academic foundation. He told me that to turn in all of my equipment, my rifle, ammunition, and get ready to leave. I was to be flown out and back to the States. Well, as it turned out, I was still in camp, stretched out on my cot. When 2 or 3 days later, all of my outfit came marching back into camp. They wanted, Sells, you still here? I wondered what had happened. Well, I was wondering what had happened also. I was, at that time then, I was finally told that I was to be shipped back in a board ship. And I learned later that when they thought I was flying back, was to attend an academic program at one of
I am
the
comfortable.
universities. On
Is it nice to be comfortable?
the
Boy, I'm getting a lot of stuff done.
schedule of semester schedule.
And you would not believe
Of the
the
universities,
sludge.
You vacuumed
I
again?
learned later,
I did vacuum.
all of the universities at that time
Yeah, but my room was a mess.
had accelerated their academic
Anyway, I vacuumed again. But the sludge around the ring
Instead
from the
of
chemicals, I had to wipe it down with a couple of towels.
two-semester
It was
year
bad.
program.
But it is,
was
take a look,
split
it's greatly
to a
improved.
three-semester.
I ran it up to 102. I just sat in it for a while, felt
No.
good. But it's a lot better.
Anyway,
You're going to go take a nap?
I was sent back
Okay.
aboard ship and didn't return to the States. And en route, we stopped off at Pearl Harbor to take on more supplies. And then landed finally in San Francisco on January 5th. And at mid-morning on a very foggy, cold January 5th morning. Anyway, it was the happiest day of my life. When the ship's captain announced on the intercom that we were going to be passing under the Bay Bridge, or under the San Francisco Bay Bridge in so many minutes. The fog was so dense that we could not see the bridge until we were directly under it. And we let out whoopies like you wouldn't believe. Although we could hear in the distance, we could hear the bells of the indicating shorelines.
You had some kind of a slogan from that too, didn't you? Something about being back.
Oh yes, it was, the old saying was, finally they wanted to, back in,
You came back alive.
yeah, what I kidding my guys and the guys in my outfit about this. Well, we were all talking about coming back in 48. And I said, well, I like back alive in 45 better.
Well, very good. Well, we're going to have to kind of wind this up because of time. You had a bout with malaria, though, again, didn't you?
Yes, I did on Guam, the island of Guam.
Yeah.
I had a second bout of malaria.
And then you went back to college?
And then I went back to college.
And
I was sent back to the States to attend college.
Yeah, but you went on the GI Bill, too?
Yes, that was later. That was after the war was over. But I ended up, when I was sent back to the States, I was sent all the way to the East Coast to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Then after a 3-week stint there, further separation program.
And so,
Just when I was assigned to USC, all the way back out to Los Angeles, California.
and you got your degree at USC?
And, ultimately.
Ultimately.
But that was years later. That was under the GI Bill.
Yeah. And you also started an engineering firm?
Yes, right.
And is that what you did most of your
I
working
most
life?
of the, I had ambitions to become an architect. However, after 5 years struggling with that profession, I decided to go back and finish my engineering, where I had more proficiency at, which I did. And then later started my own consulting engineering firm.
When did you move into our community?
Not until the end of July of last year,
So that was 2009?
2009.
Are you involved in any activities here that you could tell us about?
Only the writing group.
The writing group. Well, this has been a most interesting interview, and your experiences were quite something to relate. Thank you so much for coming and sharing them all with us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.